Good evening to our viewers and listeners across Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, the Caribbean, and the rest of the known world. This is Beyond the Headlines. I'll be your facilitator this evening. Filling in for Mr. Collindow, my name is Russel John. Joining me in studio, a panel of experts as we prepare to dive into investment migration and the upcoming symposium that will take place right here in Grenada starting from June 25th. I'll allow each of my panelists to introduce themselves this evening as we prepare for a discussion.
Well, I guess I'll start. My name is Nisha McIntyre. I am a licensed international marketing agent that supports Grenada's program, and I'm also a very proud Grenadian.
Okay, good evening to the viewing and listening public. I'm Richard Duncan, and I'm chairman of the Grenada Citizenship by Investment Committee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Burke, and I am the Marketing and Communications Officer for the IME Grenada.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and again, welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this evening we're going to be speaking all things investment migration, and the term tends to invoke strong emotions, whether for or against, across the entire nation. So I want to ask each of you, take me back to your first interactions with the idea of investment migration. What were your views about investment migration then, and how have they changed, if at all, over the last 10 or so years? I'll start with you, Mr. Duncan.
Okay, so my first encounter was around 2011. About 2011, when the government of Grenada, at the time, the National Democratic Congress, toured with the idea, and there was some consultation with the banking fraternity to determine whether and to what extent they'll be prepared to participate in such a program. It did not come to fruition. And again, in 2013, the government of Grenada, this time the new National Party administration, raised the subject and again engaged the banking fraternity as to whether and to what extent they'll be prepared to support, a program like that. I would want to take my hats off and pay homage to Mr. Steve Hosford, who was the pioneer and the foot soldier at the time, driving the legislative setup, the setup of the office and stuff like that. So from a banking standpoint, we at Grenada Cooperative Bank, where I worked at the time, took the stance that whatever economic sector or industry the government of Grenada is pursuing, as an indigenous bank, our role is to support that sector, but not at the expense of our strategic and commercial interests. So we took the stance that we will participate from what we call a compliance-centric standpoint, whereby compliance with the laws, the rules, the regulations, and the requirements of our correspondent banks would be primary.
Right.
And that was my encounter and genesis of engagement with the program.
Has that changed at all now that you're out of the direct line of banking? You're in a different role now. How do you feel about that?
It has changed in the sense that it has been solidified and has become even more rigorous. As chairman, the need to comply with proper due diligence standard, proper conduct of all the actors, whether local agents, marketing agents, or developers. Because to me, the program, its strength rests on good risk management and strict compliance. So that's my approach. Yeah.
And we're going to dive into a bit of the due diligence as the conversation develops. So, Ms. McIntyre, I'd like to jump to you. Your earliest engagement with investment migration, what were your views then? How has that changed?
So that came somewhere in 2014. I was actually working in marketing at GTA, and I was asked to provide marketing materials that would support the role of Mr. Horsford at the CBI unit. And I didn't think much about it at the time. I just thought that it was another avenue which Grenada can use to generate revenue, and another avenue that we can also inadvertently market the island. Subsequent to GTA, I took a role in Dominica in CBI, not knowing much about it then either. Just knew that I wanted something new and wanted a fresh perspective. And Mr. Horsford, again, that name comes up. I remember when I was leaving, he said to me that, you know, you're going to do something new. I want you to treat it as if you're going to university. Learn everything that you can learn in the industry and then come back home. Right, and so when I got to Dominica, which was my introduction to CBI, I learned quite a lot, and I had the privilege of working then with an entity that took me on the road, and so I got to learn the industry from a marketing agent's perspective while working in a development role, right? I was working with a developer, and at that point in time, I saw what it was doing for an island like Dominica that was very small and had very limited resources at the time, but I also got an opportunity to see the industry grow in front of our eyes and watch Dominica go from an unknown entity to a very popular entity at the time I left Dominica to return to Grenada. Now, having been in the industry for about the last 8 years, I can say that I think it's very significant. It is a good economic driver for the country. It's good at earning revenue, but more than that, I think there are opportunities there for other pillars in the community in Grenada to advance through CBI. And firsthand, as an agent, I see how it has improved the lives of the families that we work with. And so I do see it as a developmental tool, means to an end, not the end.
I would want to dig into the impact that you just mentioned and how that has played out over the last 10 years. But again, while the conversation develops, we're going to head over to Ms. Burke, Marketing and Communications Officer. The youngest of us.
The youngest of us, yes.
So Ms. Burke, tell me, what has your engagement been like?
So my experience has been very different to the two, actually. I was introduced to investment migration during my educational background in international relations and trade policy. So there we actually learned all the benefits of it. So I was introduced to it in a positive light, I would say. And for some reason, the word opportunity is what always stuck to me with investment migration. For Grenada, you know, as Nisha said, it's an avenue for revenue. So that's economic growth and development. That's what always stuck with me. And then also for international means it's global mobility for persons out there. I always think about young girls who can't go to school, and and this affords them the opportunity to travel to other regions, for this. And so this always stuck with me. But then through media, you always hear about the uncertainties about the program, and so those negative connotations did seep in a bit. But then coming into the industry, actually, that opportunity side kind of resonated even more with me, actually seeing what the program does. And so now that I'm in it, I know, those negative connotations, where they actually stem from and what they actually are, and that they're actually not negative connotations at all. They actually have a lot of positives to it, the program does. And so that has been my experience.
Excellent. And those negative connotations, the concerns, the fears concerning investment migration, they have been with us, and in reality, it's an entry point for a lot of people. So we've learned that the IMA is going to be having a symposium soon. I'm assuming that symposium is going to address some of those concerns and perhaps meet some of the people who entered into the idea of investment migration from a negative standpoint. Mr. Duncan, can you tell us a bit about the symposium?
Well, let us put it in context. I always believe that if you do not give people information, they will use their imagination. And oftentimes they imagine the worst. So CBI, as it were, the CBI committee, is not without blame, or the government of Grenada is not without blame, for failing to provide information to the public and to the community as a whole about what it is the program is all about.
Right.
To have used the imagination, and you have actually created a vacuum where those naysayers had a field day, and play they did. It is therefore our responsibility now to say that the investment migration space is not a dark, murky place where bad things happen all the time. That is not true, to Ria's point. And therefore, our first engagement with the public was in 2022, actually, at the Silver Sands, where we brought the clergy, business leaders, community leaders, and so forth. Last year, we had one again in November, that time in the Dulick Cinema in Grenville. So this is just a continuation of that quest to bring information to the public, to engage the public so that we can shed light on the positive side of the program. Of course, there are risks and how we manage those risks, and why it is Grenada program has been a clean program, a beneficial program, and a program that, in my view, has great promise, great potential, and longevity. So I will let Ria tell you a little bit more about the next symposium and what people can expect.
Excellent.
Right, so just to build on Chair's point, so the agency, we have embarked on this Understanding Investment Migration Public Symposium series, right? So we will be visiting every parish of Grenada, and the aim of that is to, as he said, when there is lack of knowledge, right? So our aim is to have a more informed population. Our aim is to increase the knowledge, increase the information that is out there, spread the awareness. So with this, our next one is at the Westerhall Secondary School. This will be on June 25th at 5:30 p.m. We're asking all the residents of St. David's Parish to come out, and the surrounding communities as well. Come out. We have leading experts in the field. It will be hosted by Mrs. Margaret Wilkinson. We'll have speakers like Mr. Duncan here, who will be with us, our CEO, Mr. Thomas Anthony, and also local agent, Mrs. Esther Naik Alexis. So persons can come out, you learn about the program, you learn about the benefits, you also get to ask your questions, because that's a big thing for us, right? We have so many questions surrounding the program.
Right.
So come to the symposium and ask your questions so that you will get to know everything that you need to know about the program.
Excellent. You've been using a term that I am not certain that our viewing public may be familiar with. So we've been talking investment migration, and my introduction to investment migration came under the name CBI, Citizen by Investment. Clearly there has been some rebranding that took place. So we no longer say citizenship by investment, or at least not as much. Now we coin it investment migration. Ms. Burke, you're in charge of marketing and communications.
Yes.
I suspect you have something to do with that. So there's been a rebranding. What was the catalyst behind this rebranding?
Okay, so then Citizenship by Investment Unit, we never had a brand identity. We've never had a presence in the market at all. And so our main thing was to create an identity. We always, we were under the brand of the coat of arms, which was limited in function a lot of the times, So our main thing was to create that brand identity so that we can go out there in the world, and present ourselves as not just citizenship by investment, because we are on the path to introducing a residency component, into our program. So we don't want to also only be under that umbrella of citizenship by investment. But then also the fact that, as we keep saying, that negative connotation that comes along with the citizenship by investment. So we wanted to kind of come away from that. So as we inform the public, they get to know about the new brand, and this is what we want to let them know.
Interesting. And Mrs. McIntyre, from a marketing agent standpoint, how has the rebranding affected, if at all, your services and what you do?
I wouldn't say that it has impacted the service provider's business as yet. I think it's still quite in its infancy, it's new. But what it does do is open up, as Ria says, the scope for the future of the program. I think it allows us as agents to understand the direction that the agency may be going in terms of what will come next. And it helps create a platform for Scope to grow. From a client-facing perspective, I don't believe that it has done much in terms of separation between investment migration, citizenship by investment. The reality is that the greater industry is termed investment migration, and citizenship by investment has always been one component of it. You have residence by investment and whatnot. So with the unit transferring themselves or converting themselves into the agency and now being an IMA, it just means that they have positioned themselves in a space where they can now capitalize on the greater benefits of the industry as a whole, the greater investment migration industry, and not just limit themselves to being a citizenship or one component of that very large and dynamic space.
Okay, so let me add, if I may, that we always say that when we rebrand, it is not just taking the car, putting on a new coat of paint, putting on some mag rims, tinting the glass, and then you stick a Mercedes-Benz logo on the car. When you rebrand, when you open the car, the hood, you're supposed to see fine German engineering. When you open the passenger side, you're supposed to see genuine leather, not mock leather or leatherette. Right? So, to Nisha's point, the real impact is on its way. So rebranding basically signals where it is you are going with your enterprise or with your company. So for example, people would say you have 10,000 people in the diaspora who have been made citizens by investment. They are biomedical engineers, they are agricultural scientists, they are medical professionals, they are entrepreneurs. They span a wide of industry. Do you know who these people are? Right. What have you done beyond to get them to treat with Grenada? If a person has a basketball manufacturing plant, I would not want to ask him for 10 basketballs for a club in Grenada. I would not ask him for 1,000 basketballs for the schools in Grenada. I will ask him to relocate one of his plants or his logistic operation in Grenada. In other words, how do we leverage that rich reservoir? So we would see where we have advertised a position called Investment Migration Diasporic Affairs Officer. And that person, when we set up all the systems and the analytics, will be driving that part of the program.
So we can look forward to an evolution of investment migration from the idea that we currently have, which is sell passports, make money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That goes without saying. Because I always tell people too, that. So people ask, will this investment migration thing last? Right? Or how long will it last? And I ask the question, how long do you want it to last? And my philosophy is very simple. Only that which mutates as the environment changes can survive. So, as the environment changes, unless the investment migration program in Grenada evolves and mutates with those changes in the environment, then its end will be there. But the continuous lowering of the risk profile, strengthening of the systems, the due diligence that we'll talk about in a while, are critical. And just let me, I'm not going on a little bit, but allow me to. Internally, the staff are the ones who drive the program. At one time, they were ashamed to associate with the program. They did not want to know, and they were told, do not let people know where you are working. So the internal re-engineering of the culture, the mindset, the pride, the admiration that they should hold for the work that they do that is so important is being built. is being built. Your community outreach that is taking place.
Right.
So you're doing that. It's all part of the rebranding and the redirecting of the enterprise.
I suppose that idea of don't let them know where you work, the secrecy stems again from that negative connotation that was there.
Actually, you're playing it. Yeah.
There's been a constant criticism associated with investment migration, and there's a common perception that this is just easy backdoor for bad actors in the world to get visas, go all over the place. What is your response to this? I'll start with you, Mrs. McIntyre, from a marketing agent standpoint. Is investment migration just an easy backdoor for the rich, bad actors to just have access to wherever they wish?
No, that's the long and short of it. Absolutely no. The reality is that as Grenadians, we sometimes underestimate the value of our citizenship because who feels it knows it. We don't live in countries where we're under threat of social, political, or economic demise. You have individuals who cannot travel for simple medical checkups because they need a visa, or people who cannot take advantage of last-minute business opportunities because they don't have a visa at their disposal, or just individuals who want to give their children a more cultured experience to this greater world that they will now live in and inherit. The reality is there are different motivators for why people get citizenship. And in my line of work, I have met families who have been ostracized because they didn't have the means. Their kids couldn't get into school because maybe they were from a country that was blacklisted and just had unfavorable relations with the country that they wanted their children to go to school in. Or even individuals who wanted to travel for business. I have one client in particular I know who comes to Grenada very often, and he has been traveling back and forth to China now for his business purposes. He has a company. He was severely limited in being able to travel before, and now this has opened up opportunities to him, and he also comes here. So it's not just individuals who are trying to get into these countries through back doors to do unfavorable things. It's just people who want to have greater access to do the things that you and I do very naturally. Right? If I am sick and I need to travel, and I need to go to the UK or somewhere, I can just get on a plane and go. I don't have to think about having to give my documents to someone and wait 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months while I'm ailing inside. Those are the things and the realities that a lot of these people face, right? And so I encourage people to think about their own lives and the limited access sometimes that they have that they wish they had access to for things that are basic needs for other people in other places. And then you really start to understand that for many people, it's just about accessing basic needs that we have that they don't have access to. They have the funds, but they do not have the means to simple things that you and I have access to and appreciate every single day.
Have the funds and not have the means. That's
she is correct, and I think Grenada should be very proud of itself in the sense that we have not had in our 10 years of existence any controversy surrounding anyone who has been granted citizenship by investment. I keep telling people, I don't know that they're here with passport holders, holders of diplomatic passport that were granted by botanical gardens. The investment migration agencies on Burns Point. So don't get the bees mixed up. They were never citizens. So not just in our tenure, meaning my chairmanship, but before, right? They have done a fine job. There are 7 grounds in law in which people cannot get citizenship. They are denied automatically. 1, a false declaration on application. That's a non-starter. All right. Yeah. You are denied automatically. 2, if you are denied in another CBI jurisdiction, you can't come here and apply. Okay. So there's no shopping around. That's in law. 3, if you have applied for a visa in a visa-free country, to which we have visa-free access, you did not get a visa, you can't apply for citizenship, you are denied automatically. 4, if you are convicted for an offense that in Grenada, offense is called elsewhere, but in Grenada law, that offense carries a custodial sentence of 6 months or more. you are automatically denied. If you are on a sanctions, a terrorist list, right? If your name show up there, right? So the idea that bad actors could get you and so on, that is prohibited in law, and your ability and capacity to pick up the information that you need to apply those prescriptions in law is extremely important. To your point, the quality and the strength of your due diligence, vital.
Okay.
That's actually what our program is known for. Our program is known as one of the most robust due diligence programs.
Very rigorous.
Yes, it's very rigorous. We have multiple layers of due diligence that's performed on each applicant.
Okay.
Yes.
So that brings me to an elephant in the room. A couple weeks ago, a story broke of an alleged arms dealer from Myanmar who is a holder of a Grenadian passport. Can you confirm, and can you shed some light on the issue?
Well, no, I could confirm and I could shed a lot of light. If people go on the internet, they will find the story which the journalist wrote, and the journalist is claiming that the subject of our investigation is a Grenadian citizen, and we say absolutely yes, he is. The time he became a citizen, that was absolutely confirmed by us, and her contention is that this gentleman has certain information about him which in law, as I just pointed out and so on, ought to have resulted in him not being granted citizenship. Did your due diligence process fail?
Right.
And the answer is no, because at the time the DD was carried out, the information that she is referring to was not yet available by law enforcement, by our DD provider, by our FIU, by the Joint Regional JRCC, Joint Regional Communication Center. And the names I'm calling there are about 4 different set of actors that do DD on these people. So then I think our next question now is, now that information has come to light, will you revoke? And the point is, revocation is different from denial. That's a whole legal process, and our response has been, even after you have been granted citizenship, we at the agency do ongoing monitoring. Selected on a sample basis, right? And if new information comes to light and there are grounds for revocation, then that process will be instituted by the relevant authorities, because we don't have the authority to do so. What we do is to bring that information to light so that relevant authorities can act to proceed. But sometimes revocation is a long legal process, so your earliest opportunity is cancellation of the passport. Yeah, and not just new information, meaning that new information is new information, but if we get information that we discover where the person made a false declaration or whatever, again you have grounds for cancellation. So it's not just at the time of application.
So in this case, where does this individual's case lie?
He is safe and he is good. There's no issue there with him. She did her investigative journalism. We gave her all the information she needed, and there's no action that is required by Grenada at this time.
None. So he currently holds the passport?
Oh, absolutely.
How many years does he have the permission to carry a Grenadian passport?
I couldn't tell you what's the expiry date. But no, but I mean, again, no. Again, and people are laughing. So even the reports that people talking about, the credibility has to be assessed, because not any and every report. If it's a report by the United Nations, let's say, and it's not his case now, on child trafficking, there are those reports and issues that rank, thing. But if it is a report by some side of the way journalists, you need to be careful with what it is you are treating with at that particular point in time. So I'm just saying that due process and rigorous DD is vital at every step of the way. Yeah.
And we're going to talk a bit about that due diligence as we come back. We're going to take our first break for the evening. Please stay tuned.
washing the vehicle, use a bucket, not a hose. Save water.
This awareness initiative is part of activities under the Climate Resilient Water sector in Grenada. The project is funded by the Green Climate Fund, the German government, and the government of Grenada.
In our part of the world, we need to be prepared for natural disasters like storms and hurricanes, even outside of the season. I'm sure you'll agree that keeping our loved ones, homes, and businesses safe is important. So, I came up with a few quick tips to help you stay safe. First, make a family disaster plan and ensure that everyone in your household is familiar and comfortable with it. Remember to add batteries and flashlights to your emergency kit. Don't be caught off guard by natural disasters. Prepare now. For more information, visit grenlec.com.
With the biggest blowout sale from Sisson's Paints. Get 30% on Sisson's Text Coat, Berger Weatherproof, and Easy Clean paints, all sizes. Your Weather Warrior, paint to protect. Ensure your home is season ready and beautiful. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Head to the Color Shop or any Sisson's hardware partner nationwide and save 30% now. Shop now and get a free plastic float with every Sisson's Text Coat purchase and a free Paint Sensations paint with every 1 gallon purchase of Berger Weatherproof or Sisson's Easy Clean. Sale ends soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for Grenada to laugh again. Heritage Theatre presents Spice Laugh Comedy Bash 2024, Saturday, June 22nd and Sunday, 23rd June at the Trade Center in Grandance, and on Sunday, 30th June at the Deluxe Cinema in Grenville. Showtime, 7 p.m. every time, featuring some of Grenada's best ambassadors of comedy. Robert White.
I will line up behind the yellow for 9 elections straight. I changed for 9 times to lose the last election. Why? Because I'm always on the losing side.
Dillion Walters.
It's the McQueen I couldn't take. I don't tell Molly didn't know.
Kareem Alexis and other outstanding comedic performances, all coming to knock you off your seats with laughter. Get your tickets now. Bring out the entire family. Tickets are $60. It's time for Spice Laugh Comedy Bash 2024.
The place go flood with laughter.
Good evening again, viewers. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. We're talking investment migration. So we left off our conversation on the idea of due diligence and the importance of due diligence. I'd like us to discuss a bit about the due diligence process, why it's so rigorous, and what exactly is entailed in this due diligence process that gives you a confidence that you can say, hey, Grenada is up to mark, among the best, and the people that we approve are up to standard. I'm going to start with you, Mrs. McIntyre, because you are directly involved in this, not to mention you have a great stake in whether or not people get through.
I mean, the first thing that I want to caution people to understand when evaluating the DD process is that due diligence gives you a historical basis of someone. It cannot predict what someone is going to do in the future.
Right.
So when you're assessing a client, you're looking at their behavior before, right? So let's just clarify that, because we cannot dictate what a client is going to do after they become a citizen. We can only say, okay, they have lived a true and honest life up until this point.
Right.
As an agent, it makes no sense to move forward with a client who has a poor background, right? Not from a financial sense, not from a time management sense, not from any sense. We do our background checks up front. We actually subscribe to Refinitiv or LSEG right now, as they've rebranded as well. And we use their World Check system. We also do additional DD to make sure that when we onboard a client, we feel comfortably enough that this person will not bring disrepute to Grenada. As a Grenadian, I also stand to benefit and to lose depending on the clients that I bring. So I take that to heart, my passport and my citizenship. I want to be always able to, use the benefits that it gives me. So I say that as a starting point. We do our individual DD assessments on clients before we onboard them. Once the client has completed their applications, then the bank does its DD to make sure that their funds are legitimate and it feels comfortable accepting funds from these clients. So that's the second layer. Then once the applications are submitted to the agency, they implement their due diligence process. And as they will rightfully say, they hire individuals, entities to go into these countries where individuals have lived for at least 1 year or more in the last 10 years to do on-the-ground assessments of them. They also tap into JRCC's communication system to see what else is happening with these individuals based on their travel patterns throughout the world. So you do get onerous, rigorous DD being done on these individuals at different levels. So it's not just to say one entity does it and then, what happens, that's the end all. Everything is taken into consideration, and then at the end of that you make an assessment. And as per my understanding, it's not just financial risk or criminal risk, it's also reputational risk. Right? Do these people have what it takes to be our citizens? Are they meriting enough? And I believe and I stand by the agency and the work that they have done in terms of ensuring that it is a rigorous and onerous process. As agents, sometimes we get frustrated because they will come back and they will pressure you and they will pressure you, and then we now have to pressure the clients at times to provide significant amounts of details. But at the end of the day, it ensures that our applications are approved. Right? I'm proud to say that my company has never had a denial. And my clients don't like me, because I'm going to be that person with a yardstick because I have a lot at stake as well. But at the end of the day, this country is important. What we're doing is important. And getting citizenship from another person's country, another entity, is important. It's not buying a car. It's not getting a visa, right? It really is becoming a national of another country, and that comes with a lot of responsibility. And so I always commend the agency for the work that they do in sticking to ensuring that they do seriously vet these clients. And from a practitioner standpoint, I can tell you that we do the same as much as we can.
Excellent. That sounds like a rigorous process. No. I don't know that I would want to go through.
But we have made that point, that is all, I didn't mention that earlier, that is also in law. That if the applicant is engaging in an activity likely to cause reputational harm, he is denied. Likely to cause reputational harm. So apart from all the criminal stuff that we talk about otherwise, that is in law, and therefore the DD process will pick up all these things. They look at the social media and stuff, and you give credibility and discount some of it and so on, but you make a judgment, and then every member of the committee gets a chance to adjudicate on that application. So not one man making a decision, the whole committee adjudicates, and then it still goes one level up to the cabinet for final sign-off. Right? So there are multiple layers of defense. 13, in fact, I count 13 layers and aspects of defense in that program. 13.
That makes the process seem tedious, and rightly so. But why would someone want to go through such a tedious process? And if the process is as rigorous as it is, then you mentioned earlier that if one makes a false declaration, is there any caveats on that? Or is it, my name is Russell Michael John, and I tell you it's Russell Timothy John, and am I denied for something that simple?
Well, once we prove that the declaration is a false declaration with the intent to deceive, you get the point, right? So you have those things. So the question is, why will a high net worth individual or ultra high net worth individual apply for a second citizenship? That question is as old as the Bible. In Acts 20, 22 to 28 with a romance, where it is declared, when Paul said he was a Roman citizen, the commander say, I paid a lot of money for mine. So given a sum of money to become a citizen of another country is not new.
All right.
In today's world, we call it investment migration. We talk about mobility. And I think Nisha did a great job in saying why people would want to have that mobility and that flexibility. I will tell you, I've not worked out the numbers yet. Many, I'll use the word many of the applicants already have US B1, B2 visa. Right. They have visa into the Schengen area in Europe and so on and so forth. So these are not people who looking to run and hide and scheme. Because those who looking to run and hide and scheme, we know they can't come through the gate. Right. We just went through that process, right? But they can't come close to the gate. We have settled that. So the idea of mobility for people who have the means has become, in the last, I would say, 40 or so years, something that they value for the reasons already proffered by Nisha, and the number of high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals globally continues to grow. Right. So this is an industry and a space where we know we can continue to play. And again, while the 5 OECS countries, people think we are the leader in that space. Of the over 100 countries that do have some form of this thing, Turkey is the leader. Turkey has almost half the industry. All right. Yeah.
Turkey doesn't have EU access, by the way. But if I may say something here that's important, right? A lot of us pay insurance policies all the time. We pay for health insurance because we want to safeguard ourselves from future risk. Right. For someone who's an entrepreneur, they understand the potential of risk. If you are willing to pay monthly premiums for life insurance, for health insurance, or all sorts of other insurance, what's so different than investing in a citizenship? For a lot of individuals, it is a way of hedging themselves against potential future risk, potential future social unrest, political unrest, economic unrest where they live. If you take COVID, for instance, it was a period in time where lots of people were locked down in their respective countries. They could not move. If you had one citizenship, it meant that you became hostage to that country, whether it was good or bad, whether it affected you in a negative or a positive way. For a lot of people, again, I always go back to the health issue. If you had to travel for health means during COVID and you only had one citizenship and you wanted to travel somewhere else, chances are there's some countries that would not have allowed you to move, right? There are individuals who, even in the diaspora, there are Grenadians who were not coming back home, right? But during COVID, because it was more easier on us here than it might have been in the US, they came back and they were allowed in because they had Grenadian citizenship, they had Grenadian passports. I remember very clearly one individual coming to Grenada, Grenadian, but did not have a current Grenadian passport, and they sent them back, right? And I use that as an example because when life throws you these curveballs, it is just another way to ensure that you and your family can make it out safely, right? There are lots of people who live in countries where their net worth is diminishing every day because when their currency faces up against the dollar, it's decreasing at significant values. And individuals who are fearful that, there may be a coup around the corner, and then what happens? How does my family leave, right? So it is just another way of ensuring that we have the means to protect ourselves, God forbid something goes wrong. And I encourage people to look at it like that, because that's how a lot of people look at it. Individuals who have the means can afford to do it, because for them it's just another investment like purchasing a luxury car. But it's an investment that means something to them because it protects their family's ability to thrive and to move forward in life.
Okay, so I can see the impact of the investment migration on the persons who receive the passport. I'd like us to talk about the impact or potential impact or the impact that we've been seeing over the last few years. What really has that been? Talk to us in terms of numbers. How many people? How much money? How many projects? What's been the impact of IMA on Grenada?
So the program has contributed over $1 billion EC dollars to Grenadian revenue in a span of 10 years, right? And in that, through the NTF, the National Transformation Fund, that program has been able to fund many projects. So we're talking the Hermitage Road, where I live actually, the Hermitage Road, the Monkumar Road, the St. John's River flood mitigation projects. So there's been many projects that the program has funded that Grenadians experience and feel the benefit of every day. It's just that we don't know it.
Right.
You know, and this is why at the public symposium on June 25th at the Russel Secondary School is where you need to come out and hear more about these benefits. But then also too, we've had so many approved projects that have provided employment through the construction phase, but even so through as they're now up and operational, they've contributed. You know, tourism is a huge thing for us. So as visitors come in and they occupy these rooms, it's also increased our room count, these resorts, you know, and so the program has benefited Grenadians in many ways that we just don't speak about as a people. We just don't know it.
Mr. Duncan, I suspect you'll have something to add here.
Yes, I'll mention one other benefit that people might not know or appreciate. I don't think it has been said. On these construction sites, it was baffling to some of these engineers how it is. In Grenada, you have to be 25 to be able to drive certain pieces of equipment. What's about this 25? That's where this thing originated. All
right.
To deal with this D-class license issue that we have, where you're actually holding back your own progress and your own development. That was the inspiration, that was the motivation to put an end to that. So I'm saying these things impact in different ways, and then you have the developers themselves who have their own charity, their own programs where they give back to the community, and I'm speaking now specifically of the folks in range development that did the 6 senses at La Sagesse. I mean, beautiful property, employed over 1,200 workers during construction, and right now you have about 197 full-time permanent Grenadians on that facility, gainfully employed. These are people who will, over time, be able to own their own homes, send their children to school, prepare for their retirement, you know, and the list continues. Extremely, extremely important. And the other smaller projects that have been completed under the program in the last 10 years, we could talk about the Silver Sands by Beach House, completed last year in full operation now. We could talk about the point at Petit Calivini, the Hideaway apartments. All these were done under the CBI program, and Dr. Oliver Paul, he has his St. David's Agro project again. So there are several success stories. So this issue as to can it work, will it work, that has been put to bed. The issue is how well do we want it to work and how long do we want this to be sustained for. And again, coming back with the rebranding, work is afoot now to lower the entry or the barriers, lower the hurdles of entry into the program for local developers, so that you have a more equitable playing field. And some people make a difference between equity and equality. So, yeah.
So talk to us about that. How is that going to impact, in a very real and concrete sense, a person, let's say like myself? Perhaps I'm a developer, I'm an entrepreneur, I have this idea, and I'm seeking to turn this idea into a reality. How does that translate this quote-unquote new opportunity?
Right. So it's difficult to say how, because the design is not yet completed. Right. So we just started, we had 2 rounds of what we say workshopping with successful local developers. I talk about point at Petit Calivini, that's Dr. Ashby, we spoke to Dr. Nixon, Oliver Paul, about their experiences, as well as 1 or 2 other locals who are now getting into it. So it's all been cogitated upon, contemplated, documented, and how it would land eventually would depend on the policymakers. Right. Long story short, there will be a special and differential dispensation for local
So
developers.
essentially, it's going to now become a bit more possible for entrepreneurs, developers, persons with these perhaps exorbitantly funded ideas to have a shot at making them a reality here in Grenada.
But that's the whole idea. But I like to remind people that once you get involved, based on how it is done,
Right.
you get a foreign investor into a project, you are giving up 100% ownership. You are giving up some measure of full control,
Right.
depending on how it lands, you know. So again, I'm saying it's early days. Yeah.
And so is the agency doing any work with regards to preparing that investment climate with the local developers in order to ready them for this new step?
Well, of course, all that will be part of the program, where the Grenada Investment Development Corporation will partner, you know, with us to make sure that whatever we come up with, really and truly, that people have appetite for it and will take it up and make something of it. It makes no sense of designing something, passing regulations, passing laws, and it just stays on the books, right? There are things they need to do to make that policy come to life,
Right.
and to deliver something tangible for the population, and that work will be done.
Excellent. So as we're on the idea and topic of investment, we had a recently concluded Caribbean Investment Summit. Can you share some insights from the summit and perhaps what that meant for Grenada?
Right, so the Caribbean Investment Summit, it was halted by COVID, actually. We were supposed to host it in 2020, and since then we haven't had that. And so we felt the onus was on us to revive that summit, and we regard it as a huge success. It was a tremendous success. We were able to bring in our partners from international scheme and also regional. We had a couple prime ministers come in. We had all of the other program heads, all of them came to Grenada, and so we were able to partake in that regional dialogue that I think was much needed, especially in this climate now, where there is increasing numbers in the media, increasing questions in the media every day, and so we were able to have that event play off, and we were hoping to have it next year in Dominica.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. McIntyre, how was it for you?
Well, I think it was impressive, as Rita said, right? For me, it was really good to sit back and be so close to very frank and real discussions about matters that impact us now as a community. You had heads of the units speaking, heads of governments, you had agents, international marketing agents who flew in and who were giving radical suggestions about how we move this industry forward. I liked the fact that there was a lot of discussion about regulation, standardizing the industry. How do we ensure that those of us who operate within this industry are held accountable, about transparency. A lot of attention was given to the importance of onboarding our local citizenry, getting people involved in understanding the what that we do, the who that's involved in the process. And that's why I really appreciated the summit, because many times we travel, we go to these summits and you get to meet your colleagues, yes, but most of what you engage with in terms of the dialogue is more marketing speak, right? Come invest in Grenada, you get this, you get that. But here we were tackling the issues that are really threatening us as an industry and coming up with really potential solutions that we can implement, and just getting buy-in from every aspect, from the local agents, the international marketing agents, the regulators, the governments, the whatnot. So for me, it was an opportunity to really hear each person's viewpoint. And I left there feeling much more inspired about the way forward. And so I also look forward to the next summit in Dominica. And I think everyone who attended would have left that summit feeling a little bit more informed about where we are in the industry and what may happen next.
All right. So you mentioned threats. Mr. Duncan has spoken at length that the fact that this is going to continue, but it needs to evolve and change as the environment evolves and change. Talk to me about some of those threats that is facing the investment migration program.
Well, I mean, internationally, you have mounting pressures from countries like the US, from the UK, the EU, value their ambitions to question the validity of these programs and whether or not they should exist. And there are those who will tell you that, is it a real threat, or are these ideologies that individuals or entities believe should be upheld? The reality is, whatever the motivators are, this is our current condition. We are under increasing pressures to ensure that the programs that we manage are done in a clean and proper way. And I think more and more there have been calls for the citizenship diaspora, those who get citizenship, to have a nexus to these countries, to be impactful in these countries. There has been a call for the dialogue to move away from get citizenship and access somebody else's country to get citizenship and understand how this new country that you've invested in can benefit you and how you can benefit it. Right? So there have been threats in that nature in terms of pressures to change how we view the program. I think everybody is very well aware of the MOA that was signed by the 5 countries in the region that conduct investment migration programs, and we will see standardization coming into play at the end of this month. And part of that is also, how do agents like us market these programs? What language do we use? How do we promote the benefits of these programs without drawing attention to other people's countries and creating a channel or a back door, right, into other people's countries? So those are some of the threats that we face now. But as Mr. Duncan said, I think we are at a point of inflection where we're going to start seeing changes in the dialogue, but also changes in how these programs are regulated. And I look forward as a practitioner to what that new face looks like.
Excellent. Before we take our next break, Mr. Duncan, Ms. Burke, is there anything you'd like to add on that front in terms of the threats?
The threats. So I like to put it this way. We live in a capitalist world. Innovation always runs ahead of regulation. In the CBI space, the market has had their play. Now it's time for the regulators to have their say.
All right.
So that is where we are at. It's an evolution. And clearly the U.S., for example, has agreed with these countries 6 principles along which they want to see this program move. The EU and the OECD just released a study. They have about 40-something recommendations inside there that, they think would help to lower the risk profile of these programs and to have better outcomes. And therefore, by engaging with the concerns and the issues of our alliance partners is a key part of the future engagement and longevity of the program.
Excellent. Well said. Ms. Burke?
Right, so just to build on that, as Chair was referring to, at the agency we've been very transparent with our development partners. That has been something that has been a major focus for us. So on that front, we do what we have to do. But then also, a big part of establishing our own identity in the market was taking control of that identity, as Nisha was talking about, and that narrative that's in the market. So as we go out, actually, we've created a marketing calendar, and we've been doing industry and non-industry events, and also just international tours, where we go to our different regions, and a main focus for us is trying to control, anyways, because we can never really control fully, but trying to control that marketing language that's used. We actually do sales trainings with our marketing agents out there, marketing agents, sub-agents, whoever that's out there that market the program for us. So that's been a big thing for us too.
Excellent. And we'll dive a bit more into that, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back from our next break. This is Beyond the Headlines.
Use a pan to wash and rinse your dishes. Save water.
This awareness initiative is part of activities under the Climate Resilient Water sector in Grenada. The project is funded by the Green Climate Fund, the German government, and the government of Grenada.
GRENDEC Community Partnership Initiative.
The project for our school is the expansion of the school feeding department and home economics department. At our school, we provide hot meals for more than 70% of our student population on a daily basis. Our previous kitchen area has been very small, and sometimes it became congested with teachers volunteering to ensure that the children got their lunch on time. The home economics department is a center for some of the other schools in the district, and they visit us once a week. What we found that based on the class size of the visiting schools, we were unable to accommodate them. We converted our practical area into a classroom, and as such we were no longer able to do the practicals as much as we would like to. Therefore, when the opportunity came up to participate in this GRENDEC project, we thought, yes, this is the best opportunity to gain some assistance, and it could not have come at a better time for us as a school when we are in the process of rebuilding, rebranding ourselves in the community. And so on behalf of the staff, the students, the PTA, and the community of River-Sally, we would like to say a heartfelt thank you to GRENDEC for partnering with us in ensuring that we improve the quality of education that we provide here at River-Sally Government School.
GRENDEC, energizing our community.
Avoid leaks at home. Save water.
This awareness initiative is part of activities under the Climate Resilient Water sector in Grenada. The project is funded by the Green Climate Fund, the German government, and the government of Grenada.
Are you curious about investment migration and citizenship by investment? Do you want to understand how these programs work and how they can benefit Grenada? On June 25th at the Wester Hall Secondary School, the Investment Migration Agency, formerly known as the Citizenship by Investment Unit, invites you to be part of its Symposium series, a public forum where you can have all your questions answered in an open and informative setting. Starting at 5:30 p.m., hear from the experts, gain valuable insights, and be part of the conversation. Don't miss this opportunity. Mark your calendars for June 25th. We look forward to welcoming you.
So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. We're here with our panel of investment migration experts. We're talking investment migration, the citizen by investment, the future of the program, and of course the Symposium series that will continue on June 25th at the Wester Hall Secondary School. We mentioned the rigorous due diligence process, and as we went into the break, Ms. McIntyre was sharing an aspect of the program that's sometimes lost when we consider the investment migration speaks. Ms. McIntyre, I'd love for our viewers to hear that. And of course, we are going to open up the phone lines, so we'll be taking your calls, so stand by for that as well. The number 440-1252, and we'll entertain your questions ahead of the symposium tonight. So Ms. McIntyre.
I like how you just threw me back on the spot, but nonetheless, I was just simply sharing, the effort that goes into working with clients, and the fact that everybody has this belief that this industry is some get-rich-quick scheme. And I was sharing that there are times you will work with a client for sometimes well over a year. Clients in different time zones. You have to travel, which is a cost to meet these clients, support these clients. You're up at all hours in the night, all hours in the morning. You're working assiduously on files around the clock. And then maybe one day the client just decides, I don't want to do it anymore. And the reality is that, especially for agents that are based here, you cannot collect from a client until their applications has been vetted by the bank. So imagine working for a year, over a year on a file that never gets to any kind of maturity. And then once that client decides, I'm done, there's no way you can collect from them. They're done and they moved on. This is closed, dead end, right? So I caution people, when you see people working in the industry and you see people traveling, it's not always fun and games. It's really not. You know, we're working. It's not just fun. As a matter of fact, I would prefer if I didn't have to travel as much. It does take a toll on the body, and it does take a toll on anything that you do. It's a relationship-based industry, right? And with any relationship, it takes time to build relationships. It takes time to build trust. And so when you're working with these clients, put yourself in their shoes. They are investing significant amounts of money for a value, but they're doing this to a country they've never visited sometimes. Some do come, but some don't come initially. And they're working with people that they've never met in person. And so that takes time. And just like you courting a woman and a man courting a wife, you know, it takes time to get to that sweet spot where there's trust and you're always putting in the effort, putting in the time. And then once you get to that point of even building the trust, it's, are they still going to move forward? Right? So that takes time.
And so I guess that goes back to your previous point as to why it's so important for you to work with clients who are reputable.
Yeah, you're spending a lot of time invested in that. It's a relationship. I have relationships with these individuals. You get to know their families. You get to know their lifestyles. And so I don't want to have relationships with unsavory individuals. It doesn't benefit me in any way. And at the end of the day, if I am going to put all this effort, months at end, into a relationship, I want to make sure that it's a client that's actually going to go the long end, and a client that will get approved. Because I do, at the end of the day, want to get paid. Right? So think about that.
And that's more than understandable. The symposium is coming up. I suspect there'll be questions. The previously held symposium did have a pretty good turnout, and I suspect you got a sense of the general feeling of the public. Who should you say, or would you say, would come to the symposium on the 25th? Because there will be some people who, as far as they're concerned, this doesn't concern me, I don't benefit, I don't see the point in taking my afternoon and coming to listen to rich people talk about rich people business. Who should be there, and why is it important?
We say everyone. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. We even had secondary school students at our last symposium attending, which, by the way, we will be embarking on an educational tour with all the secondary schools later on this year, just to put that out there. Yes, so at the symposium, we are encouraging all residents of St. David's to come out, and the surrounding communities, or even if you're able to come from another part of the country, come on out. The program affects everyone. Whether you see it or not, this is where you come and you learn how it affects you. So we are encouraging all age groups, all aspects. It doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, if you think you already have it and you don't need to know, or if you think that it doesn't benefit me in any way, I'm poor. It benefits everyone, whether you feel it or not. So this is why we're encouraging everyone to come out. It's only when you come out is when you get to know. Because Mr. Duncan was saying, in the absence of information is where we use our imagination.
So we usually dream up
exactly.
the worst thing.
We're all citizens at the end of the day, right? This is our country, and this is our country's program. And so it's in our vested interest to understand what is happening with our country and with this program and the ways in which it affects us individually.
What would you say, though, to the people who say, well, yes, it's the country's program, but it's not what I want for my country? Point blank period, I do not support this.
No, that's interesting, because there was one time when we probably did not support the tourism industry because we saw it as the return of slavery and servitude. There was that time.
Right.
There were those who did not support the construction of the international airport because we were losing our salt pond and we were losing the only part of the island where you walk to the left, you're on a black sand beach. You walk to the right, you're on a white sand. The only part of the island. So, come back to the program. There are certain things that become settled national policy.
Right.
The investment migration industry is settled national policy. So yes, even though it's policy, people could disagree and what have you not. But across the political and philosophical divide, it is understood that this is part and parcel of our financial architecture and our development agenda. Even to the point where your alliance partners, Ms. McIntyre mentioned it a while ago, the EU, the US, the European, the Canadians, to a lesser extent the UK, are engaging to see how can you lower the risk profile of this. Right. So it's not a matter of eliminating now, but rather making sure that there is mutation as opposed to elimination, because they understand the importance of it. Even the IMF is looking to work with countries now to develop the methodology for how it is you would manage those resources. And by the way, in the program, we always had it on the books in Grenada that there shall be a buffer fund, a contingency fund for the rainy days. So it's not just spending what you earn now.
All right.
And it's only in the last 2 years that that buffer fund has actually been resourced to the extent now where it has built up to about 32 million EC dollars at the ECCB. So it is, gradually coming up there. Imagine if we had done so from inception, which is what the regulations call for, how much we would have had inside there, so that in the event, God forbid, there was a hurricane or some kind of shock to the economy, and so you have that buffer fund there. So it might not impact you, but it's impacting you directly in certain respects and indirectly, and with that buffer fund, people could sleep more comfortably. That if and when something goes awry with the economy, the austerity measures that would have to be taken that will then impact you would be less, because that buffer fund has been built up over the years through the program.
So there's quite a bit that we can take from the continued national policy in investment migration. What strategies are we using right now? I believe the last report concerning the revenue that we got from the program was over 283 million EC dollars. What strategies are we using right now to market the program, and do we expect that revenue to grow, and by how much over time?
Well, you want to take it, or I could take it? So 2023, I think the final numbers are out, and it has been, as we always said, an epic year, I think, to use the word of the CEO, in terms of the, $1 billion mark, right, which all of it did not flow to the national treasury, right? Some of it was government revenue, and some of it was for the investor, project, right? But as in general, the overall resources generated by the program. In terms of the future, we have to appreciate that what we are experiencing now is what I call a special period, right, that has taken its rise from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So when you look at our source of applications, it is predominantly dealing with that Russian backlog that we've had over the last year, which, by the way, we're almost through to the end of dealing with that. Our plan is to make sure that we could get back to pre-Russian Ukraine levels of applications. Right? That's the thing, because when you have these special, what I call windfalls, you don't expect the trajectory to remain unless you have the secret for starting a war, somewhere else. That said, that's the plan. I know Ria and the CEO have been hard at work, driving and promoting the program. For the very first time, I would say, taking charge of the program to achieve other things, including getting to a pre-Russian situation level. So you will see a drop, but then we want to sustain it, beyond that point. Yeah.
So, Ms. Burke, just before we take that question, we have a caller online. Caller, good evening. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Good evening, sir. Yes. I would like... Are you hearing me, sir?
I'm hearing you well. Please go ahead.
The question of when someone obtains their citizenship, when they are given their citizenship, let's assume that individual has a problem in his country, where there's some war going on in his country. If he's trying to get away from that country, political persecution and so on. And we have to remember that there will be many people who have obtained citizenship by investment. Now, if they want to flee from the country, you can't stop them from coming to Grenada because they are citizens of Grenada. So if you have thousands of people fleeing from a country that have some sort of upheaval, and these thousands of people coming into Grenada, what do we do in Grenada? Do we flee? Do we jump over Leapers Hill? What will happen to our citizens if we have that sort of influx coming into Grenada? I need a proper answer for that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller, and we'll extend this one to the panel.
Well, I would like to take that one because I'm on record as saying that migration is part and parcel of human civilization. In fact, we have Grenadians here who have fled already from war-torn countries that were not Grenadians. They landed here with their wealth, with their skills, and to my mind have helped to make Grenada a better place. When there's strife, the people who are best able to leave are the wealthy and those who have the means, not the poor. Yeah. Right. Just think about it. If there's a famine and you're trying to move from Grenville to Tongue, hungry, some walking, some are donkey cart, some are car, who reaching on the port first to take the cruise ship to leave? The wealthy. So I am not perturbed about that scenario, whereby what you'll be having is scores of high net worth individuals with their resources, with their skills, and with their businesses to help Grenada move forward. Minus the strife. My argument is having 10,000 high net worth individuals as Grenadians in this new diaspora and not engaging them to at least relocate their business in whole or in part, to have engagement with other enterprises to transfer knowledge, skills, and expertise means that we are doing ourselves a grave disservice. If you could get 1%, let's say 10% of these people, biomedical engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, farmers, meat processors, these people have it going on to locate part of the industry or enterprise in Grenada. I think we will be far better off. So I'm not looking, with respect to a refugee situation, I'm looking to investment, I'm looking to prosperity through leveraging that diaspora that has been built up and will continue to build up. And by the way, the price of the Grenada program, minimum $150,000 US, as it is now. It's going to be going up, right? $220,000 if you're doing an investment in a project. It's not a little bit of money. So these are people who have money. And Grenada has never, in its 10 years, embarked on any special sale or reduced price or blowout sale, as some other countries have done. So the people who are in the Grenada program are not employees in Subway, Kentucky, or any such thing. These are high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals.
And I don't believe they're coming here to be a dependency of our state. That's not the intent. These individuals, if ever that day happens, that they may migrate to Grenada, I don't see them being a dependency of Grenada, of the state, in terms of taking resources from individuals who may need it here at home. They may, and if, like Mr. Duncan say, help in building up additional resources, creating the incubators that are necessary to bring additional industries to maturity here. And maybe that may be important to have some of that skills transfer, knowledge transfer that we always talk about happening.
What would you say, though, to someone who would say, well, this influx of high net worth individual means a widening of the economic gap between the have and the have-nots, and that may potentially put those of us who are natural born citizens of the island deeper into that have-not category?
The economic history is not on your side with that argument, because the evidence is quite clear that those of us who have born without and have-nots have been able to get opportunities from those who do have.
Right.
So I like to tell persons that my dad was a taxi driver, may his soul rest in peace. My mom was a hotel maid. So I know I'm a product of the tourism industry. So Holiday Inn Hotel, for example, is people who have that build Holiday Inn, partnering with the government, of course. The tourists who came and occupied the property and so on, they have.
Right.
So my parents who were in the have-not have been able to have a job, a business in the case of the taxi, and have had the opportunity to fall in love, and I've had a son, and I've had the chance to educate him through the same tourism, and he's here today. So economic history does not support the notion that investors, foreign investors coming onto your country takes away from opportunities. In fact, they create opportunities, they expand opportunities, and the entire society, is improved. That is not to say...
Before we continue, we have another caller online. So caller, good evening, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. Mr. Duncan, I asked that question specifically to see what sort of answer I'll get, and that you haven't answered the question. What I'm saying is that, right, you have gone all the way to Sotes and come back down, and the question wasn't answered. If somebody has citizenship, and they have a problem in the country, and we're talking about thousands of people, and they come to Grenada, they barrage in your country because they come into Grenada now, they have citizenship, so you can't stop them from coming in Grenada. We will have to run out of here based on the amount of people involved. And what I am saying is, this situation needs to be looked at very carefully. What I'm saying is that because of the influx, sudden influx, because war could take place anytime, political persecution can take place anytime, the people will be fleeing from the country and coming here, and you can't stop them from coming here. We will have to run out of here for them to come here. That's what I'm saying. You're not...
Well, no, I mean, you see, I have not answered the question, so the answer I gave him at first will be the same answer, so there's no point in responding. He has his notion and scenario, and I think I've done a fairly, good job at engaging him in a dialogue. So,
Ms. McIntyre, you were making a point before.
Yeah, it's important to, I think, look at the numbers, not as a whole, but also from different jurisdictions, right? I believe we have about 10,000 in the diaspora right now. We're a population of about 120,000. So, I mean, if we look at the percentage of diaspora citizenship, investment migration nationals relative to who we are here, it's not that significant. But even if you expand it outward and you look at the jurisdictions where each individual is coming from, you're not going to have 10,000 coming from one jurisdiction at any given time. Unless the entire world catches a fire and everybody runs to Grenada, you may have some trickle-down effects. Yeah, you may have some people from Nigeria that may come over. You may have some people from... By the way, we have Americans that are applying to our program. I just want to say that. It's not just the idea of these African countries or Russia or whatever. We have Americans and other people in our traditional First World nations that are coming and investing in Grenada. And I just say that when you think about there being an activity that causes an exodus per se, all of these individuals, those 10,000 individuals, are not coming from that one country. So to answer your question respectfully, I think you need to expand out your idea of the genesis of where each and every one of us or them are coming from when they come to Grenada, if there's an activity, right? Unless all of these source markets end up in distress, I don't foresee that activity happening. And if one country has an activity that happens, I don't think it would be significant enough to cause an exodus of our people now from Grenada.
All right. Fair enough.
I hope I have respectfully answered the question, sir.
I do hope so. We are, however...
There's a footnote. I could guarantee him that the United States of America, which is a land of immigration, will be taking the majority of them for the further development and advancement of the United States of America. That's what will happen. And because that's what high net worth individuals do. They look for opportunities, not to come and catch the in your place.
What I was saying before was that it comes down to your mindset at the end of the day and how you perceive situations. Because individuals coming in here who are skilled and who have the know-how, to me is a benefit, because I'm looking at how I can latch on and benefit from their knowledge, how I can get that skills and knowledge transfer. I'm not looking at it that they're coming to deplete what I have. And I think sometimes it's how you approach a situation that determines the outcome that you're going to get from that situation. So if you're going to think about it completely negatively and not look for the benefits therein that do exist, you are going to get a negative outcome, right? So I implore everyone to look at how we can have just what we're talking about, skills and knowledge transfer. Right. Aside from investors coming in, I see sometimes hesitation to even accepting Grenadians who live abroad that are coming back. It's like, what they come back now for, right? At the end of the day, you can only grow and evolve and become a more empowered individual with greater benefits to yourself, to your family, if you interact with other people and you learn and grow from other people's experience and their wisdom and their knowledge. We are very closed in this country. We're very limited in terms of our resources, in terms of our exposure. And the only how you can acquire the skills and the mindset to evolve beyond your current circumstance is if you interact with those who have experienced more than you have experienced. And if you're not leaving the country, it means that they have to come to you. All right. So I just hope that that helps to expand out that ideology a little bit more.
Excellent. And we are just about out of time, so I'll take that as your closing statement. And I'll give Mr. Duncan and Ms. Burke an opportunity for any final words.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. John. Basically, to say to the Grenadian public that the investment migration sector, industry, call it what you will, or program, is settled public policy across the political divide and political philosophy ideology on the island. Our task at the CBI committee and at the level of the investment migration agency is to do the best job we can within the confines of the law as determined by the parliamentarians whom you have elected, to make sure that the program is sustained and delivers to Grenada and Grenadians maximum benefit well into the future.
Excellent. Ms. Burke?
Right. I just wanted to reiterate that the Grenada Citizenship by Investment Unit has rebranded to the Investment Migration Agency Grenada. So when you see that flyer out there encouraging you to come on out to the public symposium at the Wester Hall Secondary School, you'll know what it is. So it's at Wester Hall Secondary School on June 25th at 5:30 p.m. We just want to encourage as much people as possible coming out and hear more about the program. We're realizing even through through that phone call that, you know, there's still a lot of knowledge to be garnered amongst our population about the program. So please just coming out to the symposium this June 25th at 5:30.
Excellent. Thank you so very much to our esteemed panel, and thank you for joining us this evening on Beyond the Headlines. We've been talking the Investment Migration Agency and the upcoming symposium on June 25th. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week.
You're curious about investment migration and citizenship by investment. Do you want to understand how these programs work and how they can benefit Grenada? On June 25th at the Wester Hall Secondary School, the Investment Migration Agency, formerly known as the Citizenship by Investment Unit, invites you to be part of its symposium series, a public forum where you can have all your questions answered in an open and informative setting. Starting at 5:30 p.m., hear from the experts, gain valuable insights, and be part of the conversation. Don't miss this opportunity. Mark your calendars for June 25th. We look forward to welcoming you.